Welcome back, guys, once again here to the hillside. It's 23 degrees outside, it's November, and I can't be outside in my garden, so what am I going to do? I'm going to repot this very overgrown, very root-bound aloe, as now is the time when you can't be outside to start catching up on all your indoor houseplant chores. So let's go ahead and see how it's done. Alright guys, when you think of an aloe plant, you probably think of this right here, the aloe vera. Very, very common. Everybody probably has one. If not, I know you've seen them. They're super, super common. Super handy for sunburns and things like that as well. However, today's episode will not be about the aloe vera. Instead, it will be about this right here. Now this is a climbing aloe. Now, as you can tell with this aloe plant in the wild, it gets the name as a climbing aloe because it will actually grow up and through bushes and through brush and things like this, and actually use its tough little leaves here as basically a climbing mechanism to basically get up into the canopy of what it's growing onto. So it doesn't technically climb like a philodendron or another vining plant, ivy of some kind. So anyhow, the term climbing aloe is not really accurate, although it kind of is. But anyways, first off, how do you know if your plant is overgrown? How do you know when it's time to finally repot one of your houseplants or any of your container plants in general, whether they be indoors or outdoors? Step number one, check this out right here. All right, guys, if you can look right here at the edge of the lip of this plant right here, you can see how the soil, the dirt, is actually kind of pulling away from the sides of the plant. And this right here, that is a telltale sign that this plant is very root bound, as basically the roots have drawn all the soil even away from the pot. So there's not much room for the roots to expand at this point. Another thing here, this is a root is actually kind of growing out of the soil then back down. So it is, pretty obvious that this plant really needs a new pot. All right, so the easiest way to tell if your plant is overgrown, root bound, and is time for a new transplanting, well, it's pretty obvious when you go to gently grab your plant and you try to work it out of the pot, and then, well, everything comes out staying together. And I just watered this plant not too long ago, so it is a bit moist right now. But yeah, it shouldn't do this. Your plant should not just be one ginormous jumbled mess of roots like this. Look at this. This is embarrassing how much overgrown this is. It is far and away time to repot this guy. And yeah, I mean, look, the soil, nothing comes off. I mean, it's hard to the touch almost. It's a little bit comes out. So there you go. If you can do this to your plant right here like this, it's well past time to be repotted. So let's kind of tease some of these roots out, see what we're working with, and then look at some containers about which ones we're going to transplant this guy into. All right, so what you need to do is very carefully just try to find out where the roots are, curling around the pot from. You don't want to rip and pull. I've seen people, they just sometimes even take some pruning shears or scissors and just cut everything directly off right here. I mean, I guess you can do that, but open wounds on the roots like this, when you put it into new soil, it can lead to rotting. So you really want to try to break as few roots as possible while kind of teasing them apart. Just look how matted these roots are in here. This is insane. But yeah, when you repot this, the plant's going to respond. Another way to tell if your plant needs repotting is it may just stop growing, look stunted. The leaves may start getting smaller. When you water it, it just is instantaneously dry. Like you just water a plant and it's already dry the next day whenever maybe it shouldn't be, because the plant is just so much root mass. It's just taking all of the nutrients and all of the water just as fast as you can give it, just so it can kind of sustain itself. And I don't want to get in too bad here and start really risking taking things apart. But you look how tightly wound these things are. This is definitely not good and not in a good situation. But look how much longer these roots are. These nice long roots. They're very healthy. You want to see if there's any dark miscoloring or rotting or soft, mushy kind of roots. Those would be signs of root rot, and this would be a good time for you to kind of do some plant doctoring, if you will, and kind of take some of that precaution to get rid of some of those issues. But I think I'm going to stop here with this. This is pretty well broken most of these heavy roots apart. I could, if I wanted to, really try to work this out and divide these 3 plants into one container each. But I think right now it's kind of so interwoven that doing that might cause so much more damage to the plants. And I mean, it's kind of cool, like a little miniature aloe forest right there. And we're going to keep it that way. So let's go ahead and find out which pot we're going to use this in and figure out what pot you should transplant aloes in just in general. So let's go ahead and check out our options. All right, plant family, let's do this. So the first option, which I'm already certain is far too small, this just standard nursery pot. Maybe you use this to put inside of another pot, but just for reference, let's go ahead and just look. I mean, even if I were to put the roots, give them enough, you see how this plant here, without crunching all the roots we just took all that time to uncover, it's just not going to fit. Okay, so you need to start, for better reference, like check this out. So if this is the bottom of the roots, you just think of how much room you're going to need, right? So don't just find this next pot you can, just shove it back in there, because you're not really helping the plant establish new growing areas for all this root mass. Okay, so this plant here, this pot is just too small. So let's check out a different option. Okay, so the next option would be this nice ceramic pot here. Go ahead and just kind of place it. If I did put it in, it would give a little bit more room to the plant. There's a little bit of gap right here for the plant to expand into. I do like the color on this. What do you guys think? I really do like the color on that, and that may be what we go with. I'm not quite sure, but I mean, yeah, it's an option, definitely an option. Let's see what else we have that we can choose from. All right, now this is an interesting color. While it would give the roots plenty of room to expand, it has enough area that this would be beneficial. I don't know if I like the color on this because it seems a bit pale in comparison to the aloe on top. And I'm not sure if I like the way the colors contrast together like that. So probably will not pick this one. I think I did like the other one better. So let's see. I think I have 2 more choices I can look at, and we'll see which one looks best. How about that? So whichever one you guys think looks best, go ahead and leave a comment down below which one you would have picked if this was your aloe plant that you were transplanting. All right, so for this option here, this more of a terracotta pot here. See what this looks like inside. There's plenty of room for the roots to expand. I do like the color. I think I do like the color. This more this burnt orange, kind of southwest feel, kind of more of a succulent feel for these aloe plant. I think I'm probably going to go with this, but I do have one other option. Let's go ahead and rule the last option out, but I think I'm going to stick with this one. What do you guys think? Is this one something? Yeah, I think this looks fine. So the last option here is this very shallow tray. I had some other succulent plants in it that this summer that I've actually up-potted already, and it's a really nice container, but just looking at it, there's no way I can make this work. Maybe if I were to somehow divide these out and individual containers, but I had the idea of more of a shallow plant would not be terrible idea, as this plant would be very top heavy. More of a shallow plant's going to be a better base for it, so less likely to blow over or tip over depending how long these plants get. But I think for this purpose, this particular plant, it's just not big enough. It's not going to work. So I think we're going to go with the last one, the orangish color plant, the orangish color pot, I should say, to put this plant into. So let's go ahead and mix up some soil and talk about what we're going to put into the soil mix that I'm going to transplant this aloe into right now. All right, guys. So when you're transplanting cacti and succulents, you can go to the store and they already sell pre-mixed bags of soil. This just happens to be the Miracle Grow, the cactus and citrus potting mix, which I've used before, and there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, for the mix I'm about to use, I actually include some of this, but I actually add some more stuff to it. So this is kind of the base of my my soil mix for this purposes here for a succulent type plant. However, if you want to go 100% make your own from scratch, there are tons and tons of videos about that, and I'm going to put out some videos of my own as springtime comes about preparing your own personal soil mixes. But there's nothing wrong with using something pre-packaged. Now, you want to avoid something that just says houseplant mix. Now, the reason for that being is you want these plants to be free draining. Okay, you need these plants to have the ability to drain because, like I mentioned, root rot on succulents will kill them faster than not watering them at all. Okay, so plants that require a lot of moisture or some soil to retain moisture would use something more of this, which might have a peat moss. Let's see if it gives any kind of ingredients on the back. A lot of peat moss, coconut coir, perlite, and a wetting agent. So this is designed to stay moist. You don't want that on a succulent or cacti. So that's very important to remember. Use a cacti mix, not a general houseplant mix for the best results. So let me go ahead and show you what I'm going to do here to make the best mix for myself that I've used with great success over the years. Okay, so first off, if you don't have a planting tray like this, you need to get one. It saves so many messes inside the house, even though I still make messes, but they're so much smaller now that I have this planting mix. And I guess people use this actually as a raised bed as well. You can actually plant in directly into this, but it does have a little hole for drainage. So if you do put plants in there, it will drain. However, when you make it into a soil mixing area, make sure you cover your drain hole or else you're gonna get dirt all over your floor, and kind of defeats the purpose of having this this box up here anyways, to keep the dirt from getting on the floor in the first place, but you never know. So what I'm gonna do is first I'm gonna take some of that Miracle-Gro cacti and succulent mix like I talked about. So go ahead and dump that in there. And you can see it has pretty loose, pretty friable, but there's things I would like to add to this to make it actually a better all-around mix. What I want to do is add some perlite. Now make sure you do this in a very well ventilated area, because as you'll be able to see, if you're not careful, there's a lot of dust particles that can come out of this, and that's just not good to breathe in. So definitely give that a chance to very much incorporate this slowly. And all these little pieces of perlite here are actually going to aid in drainage. Okay, so that's what is more important, is drainage and letting air pass through. You don't want to make sure that your plants are just not waterlogged. I've said this over and over again. It is that important for your succulents. Now to that mix, I add just a little bit, not too much. Now this is coconut coir, but it's actually composted down, so it's not the fibrous type stuff. So this is actually going to just add just basically organic matter to the soil, just for overall fertility. But don't add too much, as you don't want it to retain too much moisture, unless you're making a different mix, which then for some of my tropical houseplants, I will use actually a based on coconut coir, then use other stuff added to that. So at this point, it's really that simple. Just gently mix it all together. You should be able to feel it in your hands when you kind of get the feel for it. When you do it enough, piece of root or something in there, it should be light. It should fall apart. It should not be heavy. You should not feel that it's any big chunks or anything in there. And this is ready to use to transplant the aloe with. So let's go ahead and get that part taken care of. All right, so here we are, finally going to repot this climbing aloe. Now, what I like to do is just kind of get a nice layer on the bottom of the pot, not too much, and then just kind of gauge to where the plant is going to sit. So about there. Now, if the plant is too far out of the soil, when you try to water it, water is just going to roll off of it, and it's just going to create another problem. But that might be, should be a little bit, maybe a little too much. Kind of loosen the soil around a little bit. Yeah, we're going to go with that. So then, I just like to stabilize the plant and just kind of fill in around it. Kind of shake it in there. Let all the soil kind of fall into place. And that's why you want a nice, loose well-draining soil. If you did this with heavy, wet, topsoil or something like that, it'd be completely the wrong thing to use for this type of plant anyways, but I'll go ahead and keep filling it around the plant here. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. And nice good watering on this plant, and it's ready to go. So that aloe is transplanted. So one last thing you might consider, this plant is actually very easy to propagate, and if this is the time that you want to propagate it, it would be a good time or a good chance to you basically come in any of these sections here and just cut it right off. Let the top part dry, cauterize basically for 2 or 3 days till it's a nice little scabs formed over the cut exposed point. And then you just simply put it into the soil and it will grow just fine. However, it is November, so I'm going to wait until springtime to actually propagate this plant. But for the meantime, it's repotted. It looks nice in this nice orange terracotta pot. It's in a much better, much bigger container than it was in just a few minutes ago. All right, guys, there you go. That's just how simple it is. Selecting the right pot, making the right soil mixture, transplanting your aloe plant into a new home, giving it the best chance to succeed and grow and be happy for you all along your plant journey. So thanks for hanging out, guys. I'll see you next time here on the hillside. If you did like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my new videos coming out. And I will see you guys out there growing something every day. All right, guys, until then, bye-bye.